You see, there's a divine rhythm in life, and relationships are no exception. Some of us have been taught that love means closeness, possession, and constant reassurance. But there's a sacred paradox in human connection. The more you chase, the further love runs. Yet the one who gives space, who honors freedom, who breathes patience into the equation, suddenly becomes irresistible to the very person who fears intimacy. Why is that? Because true love is never about control, it is about presence. When someone steps back and allows another to be fully themselves, it triggers something deep inside, something avoidants are rarely conscious of. It awakens curiosity, it awakens desire, it awakens the part of the soul that craves authentic connection but has been hiding behind walls of fear. Understand this, the energy of space is not emptiness, it is sacred invitation. It says, I honor you, I trust you. I do not need to manipulate you to feel secure. And when that energy meets an avoidant, it activates a longing that no amount of chasing, pleading, or trying to fix can ever spark. This is not a punishment, this is a lesson. It is life's way of showing us that the deepest growth comes from alignment, not from grasping. The avoidant chases because they see the reflection of what they secretly desire, courage, presence, and love without conditions. And the one who gives space, they are the mirror of transformation. So hear this, do not fear giving space. Do not think withdrawal is rejection. Stand in your power, honor your rhythm, and radiate your own confidence. Because love, the kind that is real, that is enduring, does not bend, it draws. It does not demand, it magnetizes. It does not chase, it allows. And for those who chase, let this moment be your awakening. The energy that draws you is not outside, it is inside. It is the call to face your own fear of vulnerability, to meet your deepest self with courage, and to realize that the freedom you crave is the same freedom you can offer yourself. When we step into this truth, relationships transform. Desire transforms into devotion. Chasing transforms into conscious connection. Fear transforms into love. And in that transformation, you will find not just the one who gives you space, but the one who completes the dance of your own soul. Freedom is not just a physical state. It is a psychological and emotional magnet that pulls at the deepest parts of the human soul. For avoidants, freedom is not merely something they enjoy, it is something they need. Their very wiring is attuned to independence, self-sufficiency, and personal space. When someone encroaches upon that autonomy, it triggers a subconscious resistance. Yet paradoxically, when someone honors their boundaries and respects their need for freedom, it creates a space where desire can ignite in ways that logic alone cannot explain. The psychology behind this is rooted in what human behavior experts call the principle of autonomy attraction. When a person is constantly pursued or pressured for closeness, the avoidant brain perceives a threat. The natural reaction is to pull away, not necessarily because of dislike, but because the pressure activates an instinctive, protective mechanism. The avoidant learns, consciously or unconsciously, that closeness equals confinement and freedom equals safety. This dynamic creates a delicate tension in relationships. The more someone chases, the more the avoidant retreats. The more someone allows space, the more the avoidant begins to lean in. This is why giving an avoidant space paradoxically triggers the very desire that chasing attempts to produce. The freedom offered is not emptiness, it is an invitation. It signals trust, patience, and respect. And within the avoidant mind, these qualities resonate deeply, awakening a dormant curiosity. Why does this person allow me to be free, they may wonder? Why don't they demand more, cling more, or control me? The answer is invisible, yet profoundly magnetic. It tells them that connection does not have to be suffocating, and that intimacy does not require surrendering their autonomy. Neuroscientifically, freedom and desire are intricately connected. When someone experiences the space to choose their level of engagement, the brain releases a cocktail of neurotransmitters, dopamine, oxytocin, and endorphins, that reinforce curiosity and attraction. This is why avoidants can become intensely drawn to someone who seems emotionally available yet unpressuring, present yet non-intrusive. The very act of stepping back becomes a subtle signal of value. It communicates without words that the other person is confident, self-contained, and trustworthy. In turn, the avoidance desire grows, not out of need, but out of fascination and genuine respect. The paradox is that freedom in relationships is often mistaken for detachment or disinterest, yet it is precisely the opposite. True freedom in a connection is an expression of love without coercion. It is the recognition that intimacy thrives not when it is forced, but when it is chosen freely. Avoidants, whose internal wiring often associates closeness with pressure, respond to this form of love in a profoundly human way. They lean in, not because they are controlled, but because they are drawn. This dynamic also highlights a deeper spiritual truth. Desire is a reflection of alignment, not possession. When someone gives an avoidant space, they are creating a field of authenticity where true desire can emerge. Avoidants are not chasing freedom. They are chasing the person who models freedom, who embodies calm confidence, who allows them to be fully themselves without judgment. It is not an accident, it is a reflection of the universal law that attraction flows toward presence, not pressure, and that love grows in environments of respect and autonomy. Ultimately, the magnetism of freedom lies in its ability to awaken longing without force, to cultivate connection without demands, and to honor the deepest instincts of the avoidant psyche. It is a subtle yet powerful force, a divine principle at work in human relationships, reminding us that sometimes the way to truly be desired is to allow others the very space they most fear losing. Avoidants are often misunderstood. On the surface, they may seem detached, self-reliant, or even indifferent to emotional closeness. But beneath that surface lies a profound paradox. What they consciously fear is often what they unconsciously crave. Deep down, avoidants yearn for connection, intimacy, and the warmth of a loving bond, but only under conditions where they feel safe. They do not respond well to pressure, clinging, or emotional demands. Yet when someone presents themselves as steady, patient, and unthreatening, the avoidance defenses begin to soften, and a powerful magnetic pull emerges. This is the core of the paradox. Avoidants chase what feels safe precisely because it is safe. Their internal wiring associates closeness with vulnerability and vulnerability with risk. They have learned, sometimes through early life experiences, that surrendering to intimacy can lead to pain, disappointment, or loss of control. Therefore, the instinct is to retreat from anyone who appears too eager, too needy, or too demanding. But when someone embodies safety by offering respect, consistency, and emotional stability without imposing pressure, the avoidant experiences a rare psychological state, closeness without threat. And once they recognize that safety, desire is naturally activated. The dynamic is subtle but profound. A safe partner does not overwhelm the avoidant with expectations. They do not demand constant attention, nor do they try to fill every silence with reassurance. Instead, they create a space where the avoidant can engage on their own terms. This space communicates something powerful. I am here. I am present. I respect your boundaries. You can come closer or pull back, and either choice is honored. This type of emotional security resonates deeply because it contrasts sharply with the avoidant's internal narrative that intimacy equals danger. From a psychological perspective, this creates a push-pull dynamic that fuels the avoidant's interest. When someone is emotionally safe, they are no longer perceived as a threat to autonomy. They are perceived as a refuge, a partner who can be trusted without manipulation. The avoidant's subconscious mind begins to register that closeness does not have to be frightening and that engagement can coexist with independence. This shift is subtle, almost imperceptible, but it is incredibly compelling. What once felt risky now feels magnetic. Neuroscience supports this phenomenon. When individuals feel safe, the brain reduces stress-related cortisol and increases oxytocin, the bonding hormone. For avoidants, the presence of someone who is emotionally non-intrusive triggers this hormonal response, creating a sense of attachment and desire that they may not fully understand or even consciously seek. Safety becomes synonymous with attraction. The paradox is that the safer the environment, the more they are drawn in, while pressure, neediness, or control would have pushed them away. This principle also highlights a deeper spiritual truth about human connection. Attraction is not created through force, manipulation, or coercion. It is cultivated through presence, patience, and unwavering respect for the other person's autonomy. The avoidant chases not because they are desperate for love, but because they recognize that true intimacy is possible without losing themselves. They are drawn to what models a harmonious balance of independence and closeness, and this sense of safety activates a desire that cannot be manufactured. Ultimately, the avoidance pursuit of what feels safe is a mirror for all of us. It reminds us that connection thrives when we operate from a place of calm confidence rather than neediness. It shows us that desire emerges naturally when trust and respect are present, and it teaches a timeless principle. True love is not about pressure, coercion, or urgency. It is about creating a sanctuary where another soul feels secure enough to come closer and free enough to stay. Avoidants often operate under a powerful internal narrative. Control equals safety. From a young age, many have learned that unpredictability, vulnerability, or emotional dependence can lead to discomfort, hurt, or rejection. As a result, they develop strategies to maintain control over their environment, relationships, and even their own feelings. Yet the very dynamic of chasing someone who gives them space exposes the profound illusion within this need for control. In truth, control is not something they can hold on to. It is a mirage. And when they begin to recognize this, desire is awakened in ways that defy conventional understanding. The illusion of control is rooted in fear. Avoidants may believe that by keeping distance, setting boundaries, or withholding their emotions, they are safeguarding themselves from potential pain. They may even pride themselves on their self-sufficiency, seeing it as a strength rather than a defense mechanism. But relationships, by their nature, are not governed by rigid rules or calculated strategies. Love flows, ebbs, and unfolds according to its own rhythm. When an avoidant encounters someone who honors their need for space, someone who does not try to manipulate, pressure, or predict their behavior, they are confronted with a reality they cannot control. This confrontation is disarming, and in that disarming, a magnetic pull is born. The paradox is striking. The avoidant seeks control in order to feel safe, yet the very act of pursuing the one who does not require their control triggers deep curiosity and attraction. Why? Because the space offered demonstrates trust and confidence, qualities that cannot be forced or manufactured. The safe partner communicates without words that they are grounded, secure, and unshakable. They do not bend, manipulate, or seek dominance, and this lack of control, this refusal to compete for influence, creates a subtle tension that awakens desire. It challenges the avoidance assumptions, shakes their internal defenses, and compels them to lean in precisely because they cannot dominate the interaction. Psychologically, this dynamic is deeply compelling. Humans are wired to respond to unpredictability in the context of safety. When someone respects the avoidance autonomy while remaining emotionally consistent, it creates a state of cognitive dissonance. The avoidant expects distance to trigger anxiety or disengagement, yet instead it triggers attraction. The lack of control paradoxically becomes the source of fascination. The very thing they cannot manipulate or predict becomes the object of their desire, igniting a longing they did not know they could feel so intensely. At a neurological level, this interplay of control and surrender activates both the dopamine and oxytocin systems. Dopamine, the reward neurotransmitter, reinforces the intrigue and curiosity sparked by unpredictability and autonomy. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, reinforces attachment to a safe, consistent partner who refuses to be controlled. In other words, the avoidance brain responds with both excitement and comfort, creating a magnetic tension that draws them closer while maintaining their internal sense of independence. Spiritually, the illusion of control teaches a powerful lesson: love cannot be possessed. True connection is not about dominating or orchestrating the other person's actions. It is about being fully present, fully yourself, and fully accepting of what unfolds naturally. The avoidance pursuit of someone who gives them space is a reflection of this deeper truth. When control is released, desire awakens, and real intimacy becomes possible. The chase is not about power. It is about recognition, respect, and the magnetic energy that emerges when freedom and presence coexist. Ultimately, the avoidant struggle with control is not a flaw. It is an invitation. It is an opportunity to see that the more we attempt to dominate, manipulate, or secure others, the more we limit the natural flow of connection. And when we release that illusion, we encounter the paradoxical power of attraction. The one who cannot be controlled becomes the one we cannot resist. And the very freedom we thought was beyond our grasp becomes the gateway to deeper love, desire, and connection. Relationships with avoidance often operate within a rhythm that seems both frustrating and irresistible, a rhythm known as the psychological push-pull. On the surface, it may look like avoidance versus pursuit. One partner pulls away, the other chases. But underneath, there is a far deeper dynamic at play, rooted in the avoidance internal landscape and the unconscious dance of desire. The push-pull is not about manipulation. It is about the tension between freedom and connection, fear and longing, independence and attachment. It is a subtle energy that both challenges and draws. The avoidant in ways that defy logic, creating a magnetism that is impossible to ignore. At its core, the push-pull dynamic arises because avoidants are wired to both crave intimacy and fear it. The pull, the longing for closeness, exists alongside the push, the instinct to retreat when closeness feels overwhelming. This tension is magnified when the partner they are attracted to provides space, when someone does not demand closeness, does not pressure them emotionally, and instead respects their autonomy. It activates the pull. The avoidant feels curiosity, desire, and even fascination toward the partner who models patience and calm. Yet, at the same time, their instinct to preserve independence triggers the push. They retreat to maintain control and to ensure that they do not feel engulfed. This psychological dance is not random. It is a deeply human pattern rooted in the brain's response to emotional tension. The avoidance nervous system is highly sensitive to perceived threats in relationships. When they feel pressured or overly desired, stress chemicals like cortisol spike, triggering withdrawal. But when pressure is absent and space is offered, the brain interprets this as safety. Oxytocin, the bonding hormone, begins to rise, creating attachment and desire. The result is a compelling paradox. The same person who triggers retreat also triggers attraction, depending on how the dynamics of space and freedom are managed. The push-pull also creates an element of mystery and intensity that fuels emotional engagement. Avoidants are drawn to what they cannot fully possess, and the oscillation between distance and closeness generates intrigue. This is not about playing games. It is about a natural psychological magnetism. The tension itself becomes a form of emotional energy that strengthens the avoidance interest. The more a partner respects their boundaries while remaining emotionally available, the more the avoidant is compelled to reconcile their fear of closeness with their desire for connection. The push-pull becomes a dance of the heart, a delicate interplay between instinct and conscious choice. Spiritually, the push-pull dynamic is a lesson in balance and self-awareness. It teaches that love cannot be forced, coerced, or manipulated. True connection emerges when both freedom and presence coexist, when each person can hold their own space while also being available. For the avoidant, chasing someone who gives space is not about desperation. It is about recognizing the rare opportunity to engage with someone who allows them to be fully themselves without judgment. The tension created by the push-pull is a mirror of the inner work they must do, confronting fear, embracing vulnerability, and learning that intimacy can be safe. Ultimately, the psychological push-pull is a transformative force. It exposes the avoidant to the paradoxical truth that the very energy they resist, the calm, patient, non-demanding presence of a partner, is the energy that ignites desire. The pull is activated by freedom. The push is tempered by trust. And within this dance lies the potential for profound growth, a journey from unconscious avoidance to conscious connection, from fear to courage, from neediness to authentic love. In the push-pull, attraction is not a transaction or a tactic. It is the natural unfolding of human desire, shaped by respect, patience, and the sacred interplay between distance and closeness. The patterns of an avoidant are rarely accidental. They are the result of deep, often unconscious conditioning that shapes how they perceive intimacy, trust, and emotional vulnerability. From early life experiences, sometimes subtle, sometimes overt, they learn that closeness can be risky, demanding, or even painful. Perhaps caregivers were insistent, overly critical, or emotionally unavailable. Perhaps they experienced rejection, neglect, or felt that their needs were secondary. Over time, the mind internalizes a blueprint. Emotional intimacy is dangerous, independence is safe, and love is something to be approached cautiously, never fully surrendered. This unconscious conditioning operates beneath awareness, guiding thoughts, feelings, and behaviors automatically. Avoidants may not even realize that their need for space, their tendency to retreat, or their discomfort with closeness is rooted in old programming. They may label themselves as independent, self-sufficient, or even emotionally strong, yet the underlying driver is often fear. They have learned without consciously intending to, that the safest way to navigate relationships is to maintain distance, regulate emotions, and avoid full vulnerability. This creates a cycle where connection is both desired and resisted, a paradox that defines much of the avoidant experience. The very act of chasing someone who gives them space exposes this conditioning in stark relief. The avoidant is drawn to the partner who models patience, presence, and non-demanding love, yet they may struggle with the tension between their instinct to run and their deep longing to stay. This tension is a reflection of old programming being challenged. The partner who honors boundaries and provides freedom becomes a mirror, showing the avoidant that intimacy does not have to replicate past fears. This reflection is both disarming and magnetic. It awakens curiosity, desire, and the possibility of trust. Psychologically, unconscious conditioning is powerful because it bypasses rational thought. Even when avoidants intellectually understand that a partner is safe, emotionally they may still react with hesitation, resistance, or withdrawal. Their early experiences have created neural pathways that trigger automatic responses to closeness. However, the person who provides space, who does not pressure, chase, or demand, activates a different set of pathways. The brain recognizes consistency, patience, and autonomy as cues of safety. Oxytocin and dopamine are released, reinforcing curiosity and attachment. The conditioning that once led to fear begins to soften, allowing desire and engagement to emerge naturally. The unconscious nature of this conditioning also explains why avoidants often chase what seems paradoxical. The very person who challenges their instinct to control or retreat becomes the object of fascination. This is not a conscious choice. It is the mind and heart responding to a new possibility, a new pattern of relational experience that contradicts old fears. The partner who respects space provides a corrective experience, teaching the avoidant through lived interaction that closeness can coexist with freedom, intimacy can be safe, and love can be unconditional without being suffocating. Spiritually and emotionally unconscious. Conditioning is a call to awareness. It reminds avoidants and all of us that much of human behavior is influenced by patterns learned long ago. It challenges us to question automatic responses, to reflect on the origins of our fears, and to recognize that true connection requires conscious choice, not merely instinctive reaction. The dynamic of chasing someone who gives space is a profound opportunity. It awakens self-awareness, illuminates old wounds, and offers the possibility of rewriting relational narratives. Ultimately, unconscious conditioning is not a limitation. It is a pathway to growth. When the avoidant encounters someone who models trust, patience, and freedom, they are invited to step into a higher level of emotional awareness. Desire emerges not from obligation or fear, but from recognition of safety and respect. And in this process, avoidance is not a trap. It is a teacher, guiding the individual toward deeper self-understanding, authentic connection, and the transformative power of love experienced without fear. There is a profound and almost mystical truth in human relationships. Desire often grows in the spaces we do not fill. For avoidants, this principle operates with extraordinary intensity. They are individuals who have learned through experience and conditioning that intimacy can feel overwhelming or threatening. As a result, their natural response is to maintain distance, to guard their autonomy, and to create a protective buffer between themselves and the emotional demands of others. Yet paradoxically, it is precisely this distance that magnifies attraction. When someone respects their need for space, the avoidance desire is awakened in a way that constant presence, pressure, or insistence could never achieve. This is not a coincidence. It is rooted in fundamental principles of human psychology. When a person experiences absence, a sense of mystery and intrigue naturally emerges. The mind begins to fill in the gaps, imagining possibilities, anticipating encounters, and replaying interactions in ways that heighten emotional intensity. For the avoidant, who is wired to pull back from emotional closeness, the absence of intrusion or demand creates fertile ground for longing. The partner who offers space becomes an object of fascination, not because of what they overtly do, but because they allow freedom to exist without expectation. Desire is drawn to autonomy, and mystery amplifies attraction. Absence also communicates value in ways words cannot. When a partner respects an avoidant space, it signals that they are secure, confident, and trustworthy. It demonstrates that they do not need to control or manipulate the relationship to feel love or attachment. This is magnetic to an avoidant because it directly challenges their internalized fears. They begin to recognize that connection does not have to mean surrendering autonomy or losing control. The absence of pressure transforms into presence of trust. The more space is offered, the more the avoidant feels drawn, not only to the partner, but also to the possibility of a connection that aligns with their deeper desires. Neurologically, the principle of desire growing in absence is supported by the brain's reward system. The anticipation of connection releases dopamine, heightening excitement, curiosity, and focus on the person who is providing space. Avoidants, whose instinctive response might otherwise be retreat, find themselves magnetically drawn towards someone who has created this delicate balance of presence and non-intrusion. The tension between availability and autonomy activates both emotional and cognitive engagement, producing a pull that is both subtle and irresistible. Spiritually, this principle reflects a deeper truth about love and human attraction. Desire is not manufactured through force, insistence, or constant engagement. It arises naturally when freedom and respect are present. The avoidant, chasing the partner who gives space, is responding to this universal law. Love is drawn to energy that allows it to breathe. It is an expression of the sacred balance between holding and releasing, between presence and absence, between intimacy and autonomy. The absence does not signify disinterest, it signifies alignment with a higher rhythm of attraction. This dynamic also holds a profound lesson about patience and timing in relationships. The avoidance longing is not satisfied by immediate closeness. It is cultivated in the space that allows reflection, anticipation, and conscious choice. Desire deepens when it is nurtured in an environment where both parties feel respected and free. The absence is transformative because it allows the avoidant to approach connection not from compulsion or fear, but from curiosity and genuine engagement. It teaches that love cannot be hurried, forced, or manufactured. It must be earned through presence, patience, and respect for the natural rhythm of attraction. Ultimately, the principle that desire grows in absence reveals a timeless and universal truth. What is allowed to exist freely is often the most deeply longed for. The avoidant's pursuit of someone who gives space is not irrational or accidental. It is a natural response to the subtle, magnetic power of freedom, mystery, and respect. In this dynamic, absence is not emptiness. It is the fertile ground in which desire, curiosity, and authentic connection flourish, guiding both the avoidant and their partner toward a deeper, more conscious experience of love. The dynamics between an avoidant and the one who gives them space are not just about attraction, they are a reflection, a mirror that illuminates the inner landscape of the avoidant psyche. Every interaction, every pull and push, every moment of desire or retreat acts as a reflection of their deepest fears, unresolved wounds, and untapped potential for growth. The partner who provides space is not merely a person in the avoidant's life, they are a living mirror, showing truths the avoidant may not have fully acknowledged. That avoidance is a defense mechanism, that fear of vulnerability limits authentic connection, and that intimacy can exist safely when approached consciously. Avoidants often approach relationships with a combination of curiosity and caution. On one hand, they long for connection, understanding, and closeness. On the other hand, they instinctively retreat when emotional demands feel overwhelming. This duality is rooted in past experiences, often from childhood, where expressing needs or seeking closeness may have been met with inconsistency, rejection, or judgment. The patterns they develop, emotional withdrawal, independence as armor, and subtle control strategies, serve as protective mechanisms. Yet when they encounter someone who does not react to these patterns with pressure, the mirror effect is activated. The avoidant sees, often unconsciously, how their behaviors are influenced by fear rather than genuine choice. This mirror effect is subtle but profound. The one who gives space does not demand change or confrontation. Instead, their calm presence highlights the avoidant's inner workings. The avoidant may notice that their instinct is to chase, to push, or to test boundaries. They may see that they are drawn toward distance yet simultaneously crave connection. The partner who respects space does not participate in the drama. They simply remain consistent, present, and patient. In doing so, they reflect back a truth the avoidant cannot ignore. Avoidance is not the solution, it is a symptom. Psychologically, this dynamic offers a powerful opportunity for self-awareness and growth. The avoidant is forced to confront the tension between fear and desire. They are shown that vulnerability does not have to equal weakness. that expressing needs does not have to be dangerous, and that love can exist without control or coercion. The partner who provides space becomes a living case study in trust and emotional security, revealing both the limits of avoidance and the possibilities that lie beyond it. This reflection is transformative because it is not theoretical. It is embodied in real-time experience. Spiritually, the mirror of inner work teaches a universal principle. Growth often comes through relationships, especially when those relationships challenge our habitual patterns. The avoidance pursuit of someone who allows us pace is a call to inner alignment. They are being asked to observe, reflect, and eventually transcend their unconscious fears. The tension they feel, the oscillation between pulling back and leaning in, is a signal that transformation is possible. By leaning into this discomfort with awareness, the avoidant begins to integrate parts of themselves they may have long ignored: courage, emotional presence, and the capacity to engage deeply without losing autonomy. Moreover, the mirror effect is not one-sided. The partner who gives space also embodies a model of conscious love. They demonstrate patience, trust, and the power of presence without neediness. By holding this energy consistently, they create a safe container for the avoidant to experiment with vulnerability and closeness. The avoidance attraction grows, not from fear or dependency, but from recognition of the possibility of authentic connection. Desire and growth become intertwined. The more the avoidant engages with the mirror, the more they are drawn inward to examine and expand their inner world. Ultimately, the mirror of inner work shows that relationships are not just about two people, they are about reflection, awakening, and transformation. The avoidant's pursuit of someone who gives them space is a path towards self-discovery, emotional maturity, and conscious intimacy. Each interaction becomes a lesson, each tension a catalyst, and each moment of desire an invitation to face fear and embrace the fullness of authentic love. In this reflection, the avoidant begins to see that the greatest attraction is not only toward the other person, but also toward the higher version of themselves. That connection awakens. One of the most profound forces in the dynamics between avoidants and those who give them space is patience. Patience is not passive waiting. It is an active, conscious presence that communicates trust, understanding, and unwavering steadiness. It is a powerful energy that transforms the relationship from a cycle of tension into a field of growth. For the avoidant, whose instinct is often to retreat when emotional intensity rises, patience from a partner creates a container of safety in which curiosity, desire, and authentic engagement can flourish. Transformation is not forced. It is invited, nurtured, and allowed to unfold naturally over time. Avoidants are often caught in a pattern of seeking autonomy while simultaneously longing for connection. They may push people away, oscillate between closeness and distance, and resist vulnerability, not out of malice, but as a protective response to fear. When a partner responds with patience, they are offering a counter-narrative. Closeness does not have to be overwhelming, intimacy does not require surrendering autonomy, and love can be consistent even in the face of uncertainty. This steady presence disrupts old patterns and gradually rewires the avoidant's perception of relationships. They begin to see that closeness can be safe, trustable, and even nourishing, and the transformation begins in subtle yet profound ways. Psychologically, patience activates the avoidant's capacity for engagement without triggering alarm. The nervous system of an avoidant is highly sensitive to perceived threats. Pressure, neediness, or emotional intensity often provoke withdrawal. But when patience is present, the brain interprets the environment as safe. Stress responses diminish. Oxytocin is released, and attachment pathways are strengthened. This physiological shift is crucial. It allows the avoidant to approach connection without defensive patterns dominating their behavior. Desire and curiosity are no longer entangled with fear. Instead, they are free to unfold naturally in response to consistent, calm presence. The transformation that patience facilitates is also deeply emotional. Avoidants begin to experience intimacy not as a threat, but as a possibility. They learn that vulnerability can coexist with autonomy, and that emotional closeness does not require abandoning themselves. Each moment of patience from a partner serves as a subtle lesson, a living example that rewrites old stories of fear and avoidance. Over time, these small but consistent experiences accumulate, reshaping beliefs about love, trust, and the capacity to be fully known. What was once frightening becomes familiar. What was once resisted becomes desired. Spiritually, patience embodies a universal principle. Growth cannot be rushed. Just as a seed requires time, water, and sunlight to grow into a tree, emotional transformation in avoidant requires the steady presence of someone who honors their pace. The partner's patience is not a passive act. It is a form of conscious love, a willingness to hold space without judgment, and a recognition that the process of integration, awareness, and trust unfolds over time. This principle transcends relationships. It is a lesson about how all transformation, personal, emotional, and spiritual, requires patience, respect, and alignment with natural rhythms. Moreover, transformation through patience is reciprocal. The avoidant, witnessing and experiencing consistent patience, begins to cultivate patience within themselves. They learn to tolerate discomfort, to sit with vulnerability, and to engage without immediately retreating. The relationship evolves into a dance where both parties grow together, one modeling steady presence, the other learning to trust and engage without fear. Desire transforms into connection, curiosity evolves into intimacy, and fear is gradually replaced by confidence in the possibility of love. Ultimately, patience is the catalyst for transformation. It turns the pursuit of avoidance into a journey of growth, self-awareness, and conscious love. Through patience, avoidance is not merely challenged, it is healed. Through patience, desire is not just aroused, it is deepened. And through patience, relationships are not simply endured. They are elevated into sacred spaces of trust, freedom, and profound human connection. In this process, both the avoidant and their partner discover that love is not about forcing change. It is about nurturing transformation through unwavering presence, understanding, and the quiet power of patience. Thank you for sharing your time and energy. Wishing you endless inspiration and growth ahead. Goodbye, and may your journey be filled with clarity, courage, and joy at every step.